perfect you. That's because of the daily dying. And what is this sanctification? That's the daily dying you do that's separating you from yourself. It's making you single or pure or holy. Holy comes in a lifetime. Holy does not come when you walk down the aisle of a Pentecostal church or a Nazarene church. That's not what makes you holy. Those people claim to be holy. You know that, don't you? We're holy. We live above sin. The Nazarenes say. I don't normally give them a hard time, but they do say they live above sin. That's foolishness. That's not true. You're fooling yourself. There is a part of us that doesn't sin, but that's the inner man. Whosoever is born of God doth not commit sin. His seed remaineth in him, and he cannot sin because he's born of God. But the outer man, if the outer man says in 1 John 1 and 8, if we say we have no sin, we deceive ourselves, and the truth is not in us. But what is the sin that's in us? It's the outer man. And to make us pure or holy, God's got to get rid of that outer man. Well, he's done a work on me. It's taken him 70 years to do it. And he'll do a work on you. Hasn't he worked on you guys? Has he worked on you, Dwayne? Beat you half to death, hasn't he? An old rocker like Dwayne? Yeah, Jim, been out there. Jim's a chiropractor now. He used to be a bouncer in a bar. I told on you.
It's the truth.
It's the truth.
He gave people pain and now he takes it away.
Yeah. And we got some people here that's been real doozies out here. Got some guys that's been in prison. Got an old biker like Fred, been in prison. Guys beat his brains out to get his attention. Just whacked him upside the head. Several times. Yeah. And we've been, a lot of people here have been down that long, hard road to make us holy before God. But if you're not holy, that's because God's not dealing with you. If you're not holy, is not something you become one day. It's a very slow process of being sanctified, because sanctify and holy are roots of the same word. Now, and he says in verse 19, being put to death in the flesh and quickened by the Spirit is the means by which also he went and preached unto the spirits in prison. God has preached to the spirits in prison. Prison, one more time, phulake. Phulake, P-H-U-L-A-K-E. Now when you study the word prison, you got to look at the word prison from every aspect. You got to look at it from the word itself, everywhere you find prison, prisoner. Every time you find a binding, bind, prison. Anything that binds a man is a type of a prison. A forbidding. The word bind, dio, means to forbid. You see, we were in darkness, and we were bound in darkness. Darkness means no light, no truth, no Jesus. Jesus said, I am the truth, I am the light. Didn't he say that? So, bind. And Paul said, I am a prisoner of Jesus Christ. And when we find there's a word for supplication. It's the word diesis. Diesis. Diesis is a derivative of dio, meaning to bind or forbid. When Satan is bound in the bottomless pit, that's a type of a prison. But prison to the first century people didn't mean something that doesn't mean a thing here and there's a bunch of bars and there's guys looking out the bars, you know. That's not what it meant. It meant anything that bound people. Since Israel didn't have any prison sentences, when God wanted to put them in prison, he'd have Nebuchadnezzar come over here, pick them up out of Israel, take them to Babylon. And they were put in prison in Babylon, and they didn't have any temple when they were carried over there. So they were bound over here. And what bound them was the desires for Babylon after their bonds were cut. and they were allowed to be loose out there in Babylon, and they begin to take over Babylon, and God sends God sends them some directives or some decrees from the Persian kings to go back and come out of that prison and go over here and rebuild the temple. Go to a wasteland. They said, we don't want to do that. We like our prison. When man is bound in prison, what really imprisons a man when he's in his sin is sin itself. He likes it so much, he says, I like this prison I'm in. I love the darkness. I like the darkness. Darkness is equated with sin. Light is equated with truth. And men love darkness rather than light because their deeds were evil. They like the darkness. I like sin. The only thing that really keeps me from sinning is a couple of things. God's dealt with me severely over the years. And another thing is age. It's just too hard. The work is too difficult. You don't know how hard work sin is till you get older. And you say, man, do I have to go to a bar now? Do I have to go to a club? Do I have to go out there and flirt with some woman I don't know and she's a bar hopper? Do I have to do that? That's too difficult. Isn't it? After you get old, you say, this is hard work. Huh? Yeah, that you'd kill me. I would appreciate if you would, if I ever did that, because I'd feel like it's dying anyway. Yeah, you know I went off the deep end, don't you? Well, I don't think I'm going to do that. The work is hard. Y'all know what I'm saying. Wouldn't you hate to have to go out there, Ken, and have to go out there and mess around where you used to mess around? Wouldn't you hate that, Jim?
Oh, God.
Oh, God, don't make me do that. Don't make me do that. God would have to make you, wouldn't he? So darkness, that's a type of prison, and that's sin. We've talked about darkness and light. Darkness and light. All through the New Testament, Paul is always telling the Gentile churches, you were. Were is a past tense verb. You were darkness. That's over there in Ephesians, the 5th chapter. You were darkness. But now are you light in the Lord. Walk as children of light. What did he mean to the Ephesians? You were darkness. That meant for a 4,000-year period, the Gentiles were forbidden. Remember, this word dio means to forbid. Anytime you're bound, that's the word it's used for bind. Whatsoever you bind on earth be bound in heaven. Whatever you loose on earth be loosed in heaven. And that's also the word that's used where Satan was bound in the bottomless pit. That's why people think the bottomless pit, bottomless pit is a bad translation. The word bottomless pit is the word abusos, A-B-U-S-S-O-S. And in the Greek, abusos would be an idiom. It'd be something that doesn't actually mean what it looks like it says. The reason is because you define the